I'll send it to you right now. The deputy said, "This is a criminal matter." I inhaled. "Yes," I said. "One of them is my sister, Vanessa, and the other is her husband, Craig." Pause. "Your sister?" "Yes," I said. "She's been using my property without permission. I changed the locks after she refused to leave, and now she's trying to break in again." There was no turning back now, and Vanessa was about to discover that actions have consequences. I said, "I'm going to file a report and forward this to the district attorney's office. You may also want to consider a restraining order." I hung up feeling a strange mixture of relief and dread. I went to work, but I was unable to concentrate, so I kept checking my phone every few minutes, hoping to get a call from Vanessa or my parents, but nothing came. By Tuesday afternoon, the silence had become intolerable, so I called my lawyer, Keith, and explained the situation. He listened intently, asked some clarifying questions, and then said, "I'll draft the cease and desist letter today. So that there is proof of delivery, we will send it by certified mail. And given the break-in attempt, I'd strongly urge seeking a restraining order." "How much time does that take?" "You have a few days to file for a temporary restraining order," I inquired. "If the judge approves it, it will take effect until a hearing is set. You will offer your evidence at the hearing. And if the judge finds that there's a threat, they'll issue a permanent order." "For Vanessa, what does that mean?" "It indicates that she is unable to approach you or your property within a specific radius. She may be arrested if she disobeys the instruction." The phrase "arrested" lingered. I felt vindicated in part. Something else felt ill. This was my family, my sister. How did this happen? However, I already knew the solution. Vanessa had never been taught that no meant no, so it had come to this. As she had never been held responsible by my parents. And since I had been silent for years, allowing the conduct. I said, "Let's do it. Put the restraining order in writing." By Thursday, Keith promised to have the documentation ready. He sent the cease and desist letter in the interim. I studied it attentively after receiving a copy via email. It was clear-cut, legal, and formal. It said that Vanessa and Craig could not come within 100 feet of the cabin, contact me, or visit my property. It listed the proof of property damage and trespassing and issued a warning that any more infractions would lead to criminal proceedings. I pictured that letter being opened by Vanessa. I pictured her hands shaking and her face flushed. I pictured her crying and calling my mom to tell her that I was wrecking her life. Excellent. I got a call on Wednesday night from an unidentified number. Something forced me to answer when I nearly didn't. "Erica." It was a strained but familiar voice. "Craig." "Yes, pay attention. We must speak." Anger shot through me. "I don't believe we have anything to discuss." "Come on," he urged. "This has gotten completely out of control. Vanessa is furious. Your mother is not happy. Everyone is angry. Can't we simply resolve this like grown-ups?" I stated I tried to figure it out like an adult. "I requested that you vacate my premises, you made fun of me. Then you entered." He answered hastily, "We didn't break in. The door stood open already." I yelled, "Don't lie to me." Here was a long pause before the speaker said, "I have video footage of you trying to pry open the back door with a crowbar." "Look," he finally said. "Vanessa didn't think it was a big deal. She just wanted to utilize the cabin. She broke into my property, and you're making this into something it's not," I stated gently. "That's not nothing. That's a crime." "Come on, Erica. She's your sister. Are you really going to pursue charges if she comes near my property again?" "Yes." "You're being stupid," he continued, his tone moving from conciliatory to annoyed. He said coldly, "Vanessa is right about you. You're selfish. This is family business. It doesn't need to involve lawyers and cops. It became legal business the moment you broke my window," I said. "And I've already filed a police report. So unless you want things to get worse, I suggest you stay away from my cabin." His words hurt, but I didn't let him hear it in my voice. "Goodbye, Craig." I hung up. I sat on my couch shaking. I felt like crying. "You act like you're so independent and successful, but in reality, you're just lonely and bitter, which is why you can't share anything. Because you don't have anyone in your life who actually matters. Even though I wanted to scream, Craig's words were more than just insults. They reflected how my family perceived me: selfish, lonely, and bitter, and they failed to recognize my sacrifices, hard work, and the fact that I had created a life I was proud of and didn't need their approval. Keith called on Thursday morning, saying, "The restraining order has been filed. There's a hearing scheduled for next Tuesday. You'll need to be there to present your evidence." "What should I bring?" I asked. "Everything." Everything means the police report, the emails, the texts, the video footage, and the emails. Your case will be stronger if you have more documentation. I put all of my evidence in a binder, printed out screenshots of the security footage of Vanessa and Craig at the cabin, and included the police report, window repair invoice, and all of the texts Vanessa had sent me in the previous 2 weeks. The binder was more than 50 pages long by the time I finished it. My mother called me on Friday afternoon, and although I nearly didn't answer, I felt I owed her one final call. "Hi," I began, "I just learned that you filed a restraining order against your sister, Eric. Is that accurate?" "Yes." "How did you accomplish this?" Her voice was high and strained. "She's your sister," she said. "You're going to court with her." "Twice, Mom," she broke into my hut. I had no other option. She was wrong. I didn't embarrass my mother, who claimed she didn't think you would truly contact the police. "The entire family is now aware of this," she said. "You're tearing this family apart." I could hear her sobbing. "Your father and I are heartbroken. We've always tried to teach you to be compassionate, to forgive, to put family first, but you've become so cold. I don't even recognize you anymore," I said. She humiliated herself by breaking the law. "Perhaps you didn't know me well," I muttered. She said, her voice angry. "Boundaries? Maybe I've always been the one who wanted boundaries, and you just never listened. Do you want to ruin your connection with your sister over boundaries? Is that what this is about?" I stated, "I'd rather be in no relationship than be in a toxic one. And if you can't respect that, then maybe we need some distance, too." She was gasping. "That's not what you mean." "I do," I said. "Mom, I love you, but I can't keep putting your happiness ahead of my own health." She ended the call. I put down my phone and gazed out the window. My apartment was covered in deep shadows as the sun began to set. I was tired and empty, yet I also felt oddly liberated. I had chosen myself for the first time in my life, and I had no intention of apologizing. I made a final trip up to the cabin the weekend before the hearing. I had to walk through the area that had sparked so much conflict in order to witness it for myself. Since the attempted break-in, I had not gotten any notifications, and the security cameras were operating flawlessly. The cabin was just as I had left it, quiet and undisturbed. I organized, cleaned, and took inventory on Saturday. I wanted all of this to be recorded in case there were any disagreements later. Every room, piece of furniture, and detail was captured on camera. I made sure all of my documents were in order and renewed my insurance coverage. I had coffee on the deck on Sunday morning while I observed the dawn. The snow-capped tops of the mountains gave them a stunning appearance. It was clear, pristine air. And I felt really at peace for the first time in weeks. I owned this place. I had merited it. Furthermore, I refused to allow anyone to take it away from me. Keith phoned to review the hearing process on Monday night. He clarified, "The judge will hear from both sides. You'll give Vanessa a chance to respond after you've presented your evidence, so be ready for her to refute everything or say you're exaggerating." "What if she brings my parents?" I said. "The judge will consider the facts, the break-ins, the property damage, and the threatening behavior. If the judge issues a restraining order, Vanessa will not be allowed to contact you or come within a certain radius of you and your property. They are welcome to attend, but they are not allowed to testify unless they have first-hand knowledge of the incidents." This was actually happening. I was taking my sister to court on Tuesday morning, so I dressed carefully, a navy blazer, gray slacks, and simple jewelry, in order to look professional, composed, and calm. I arrived at the courthouse 30 minutes early, and I sat in the hallway going over my binder. Normally, it's 100 yards. If she violates it, she can be arrested right away. I hung up feeling anxious but determined. The last time I saw them was at 9:15. My father, mother, and Vanessa came down the hall together, and when they saw me, they stopped. My father looked exhausted and dejected, my mother's face was pinched with disapproval, Craig gave me an open glare, and Vanessa looked afraid. Keith showed up there a few minutes later, shook my hand, quickly went over the evidence, and remarked, "You're going to do great. Good. She should be afraid. Just be composed and stick to the truth." My pulse was pounding when we walked into the courtroom, and the judge was a middle-aged woman with a piercing gaze and a straightforward manner. She looked at both parties, went over the case file, and stated, "Let's get started." Keith meticulously presented our case, submitting the police report, the repair invoices, the paperwork of the initial break-in, and the security film of Vanessa and Craig trying to break into the cabin. After reading passages from Vanessa's threatening texts, the judge watched the video closely, her face unreadable, and made a note on her legal pad when the video showed Craig brandishing the crowbar. Then it was Vanessa's turn. She had no lawyer and most likely couldn't afford one. She stood up, her hands shaking, and declared, "Your Honor, this is all a misunderstanding. My sister is named Erica. In our family, we have always shared stuff. I believed I was allowed to use the cabin. I only wanted to speak with her to find out why she was excluding me when she changed the locks. I had no intention of breaking in. When we arrived, the door was already broken." The judge gave her a doubtful look. "This video plainly shows your husband trying to force access with a crowbar. How do you explain that?" Vanessa's face reddened. "He was only making sure the door was safe." "You're saying the door was already damaged?" "Yes, Your Honor." The judge took another look at the video. "Concerned about Erica's property, we wanted to make sure that nobody else had broken in." "By breaking in yourselves?" the judge asked dryly. Vanessa argued that we weren't breaking in, that we were family, and that we believed we had a right to be there. "Did you have your sister's consent to be there that day?" the judge asked. Vanessa didn't respond, so the judge turned to me and said, "Miss Erica, do you have anything to add?" I stood up, my voice steady, and said, "Not specifically. But she'd given me a key before. I thought that meant I could use it whenever I wanted. Even after she explicitly asked you to leave and change the locks. When I got to my cabin and discovered her family there without permission, I asked them to leave, but they refused, so I changed the locks to protect my property, and then they broke in again. This isn't about sharing, Your Honor. I gave my sister a spare key for emergencies only, and I made that clear when I gave it to her. I have seen enough. The evidence clearly demonstrates a pattern of trespassing and property damage. I'm granting the restraining order. Miss Vanessa, you are not allowed to contact your sister or come within 100 yards of her or her property." The judge nodded. "This is about respecting boundaries and abiding by the law. Your Honor, please. Do you understand?" the judge reiterated firmly. "Yes," Vanessa whispered. "This order is effective immediately and will remain in effect for 1 year. If you violate this order, you will be arrested and charged with contempt of court. Do you understand?" Vanessa's face fell apart. "This hearing is adjourned." Keith rubbed my shoulder and said, "You did great." The judge saw right through her story. I murmured, "Thank you, for everything," as we left the courthouse, feeling a strange mixture of relief and tiredness. "Call the police right away if she disobeys the order. Don't think twice." I gave him a nod and watched him leave. I almost bumped into my parents as I was leaving the courthouse. My mother's eyes were red with tears, and my father's expression was one of sadness and resignation, perhaps. "Are you happy now?" my mother asked, her voice breaking. She broke the law, she refused to respect my boundaries, and she did it twice. My father said, "You could have just talked to her. You could have worked it out, but instead you took her to court. You got a restraining order against your own sister. Do you know how that looks?" I said quietly, "I don't care how it looks. You've destroyed your sister, and you've destroyed this family. What was I supposed to do?" My mother stated that you were supposed to forgive her and be the greater person. I said that I had been the bigger person for 29 years, giving everything I had, putting the needs of everyone else before my own, and it was never enough. My father shook his head, saying, "You've changed, Erica. You're not the daughter we raised." I responded, "No, I'm exactly the daughter you raised. You just never bothered to see me." I left the courthouse after them, and I could hear my mother crying behind me. For the first time in my life, I was choosing myself, so I kept walking even though a part of me wanted to turn around and comfort her, to make everything okay. Over the next several weeks, nothing happened. My parents stopped calling, Vanessa didn't get in touch with me, and I went back to my usual routine. I installed extra security measures, such as motion sensor lights and a doorbell camera, because I wanted to make sure I would never be caught off guard again. One Saturday afternoon in late November, I was reading on the deck at the cabin when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number that said, "Can we talk? This is Vanessa." I stared at the message. I could report her and have her arrested because she was violating the restraining order by contacting me, but I hesitated for some reason, so I texted back, "You're not supposed to contact me." Her response was prompt, "I know. I'm sorry. I just need 5 minutes. Please." I called her against my better judgment, and she answered right away. "Thank you for calling," she added in a low voice. I needed to say something even though I know I shouldn't have. "Make it quick," I responded. "I apologize for everything," she murmured. "For breaking in, for using your cabin without permission, for everything. I was mistaken. Now I am aware of that." Unsure of what to say, I waited. "I'm getting divorced from Craig," she added. "After everything that happened, we started fighting all the time. He blamed me for the restraining order. He said I embarrassed him, and I realized he was never on my side. He just wanted access to your cabin because he thought it made him look successful." "Vanessa, I'm not asking you to forgive me," she replied quickly. "I wanted to let you know that I finally understand, even though I know I don't deserve that. I get what you were attempting to convey to me about respect and boundaries. I simply didn't want to listen to it." I shut my eyes. I felt vindicated in part. There was another portion that was really depressing. I said, "I'm glad you understand. However, that doesn't alter what took place." "I understand," she said. "I wanted to let you know that I'm going to therapy and to apologize. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did and why I believed I had a right to things that weren't mine." "That's excellent. I hope it helps," I said. "Me too," she said. "I should leave. I appreciate you listening, but I don't want to get in trouble for phoning you." Before she could end the call, I said, "Vanessa, respect the restraining order if you truly want to put things right. Till it expires, don't get in touch with me again. Furthermore, any future relationship you wish to have with me will need to be on my terms and with boundaries. You get it?" "I do," she muttered. "Erica, goodbye. Farewell." After hanging up, I spent a considerable amount of time gazing at the mountains. Nothing had been cured by the talk. Our relationship had not been repaired by it. However, it seemed like a baby step in the right direction. Closure, but not exactly reconciliation. We might be able to rebuild someday. However, things would need to be different. Equal rights and respect for the boundaries I'd worked so hard to create would be prerequisites. But for the moment, I was happy to be by myself. The cottage became my haven when winter came in force. I spent Christmas there by myself, which was odd at first but calm in the end. I read by the fireside, made a simple meal, and watched the snow fall. I had never spent a Christmas without my family before, and it was unexpectedly freeing. I was notified in January that the hearing for the restraining order was concluded. It was rendered permanent by the judge for a period of 1 year, with the possibility of renewal if needed. I tried not to worry about it and put the paperwork aside. I was busy at work. The company's leadership team recognized me for spearheading a significant project launch in February. The prospect of being promoted to senior project manager was brought up by my employer. I was thankful for the diversion and pushed myself back into my profession with newfound vigor. The actual shift, however, occurred in March. One weekend, my property manager, Beverly, came to visit me at the cabin. After the events in the fall, she wanted to make sure that everything was alright in the neighborhood. No issues, I informed her. The security footage has been excellent. No more unexpected guests. Good, she said. I'm happy you feel secure in this place. You know, real estate in this neighborhood has become really popular lately. Values have increased dramatically. Really? Startled, I asked. Yes, indeed. You would benefit handsomely if you ever considered selling. I didn't intend to sell, but I did thank her for the information. It was not an investment to buy this cabin. It served as my haven. Nevertheless, her remark made me stop and reflect. I have put a lot of effort and time into trying to keep this location. I had caused family arguments and strained relationships. Was it worthwhile? That afternoon, I sat on the porch and gave the question a lot of thought. And the response was in the affirmative. The cabin was valuable because it symbolized something greater, not because it was a flawless piece of real land or because it was worth a specific sum of money. It stood for my freedom to refuse and my right to possess something that was exclusively mine. I have the right to establish limits and demand that they be adhered to. If Vanessa had been allowed to use the cabin whenever she pleased, I would have caved in. I would have lost more than just a piece of property if I had given in to my family's insistence that I should always share. I wouldn't have been myself. I had been accustomed to my new normal by April. I had occasional discussions with my parents, but they were official and rigid. We didn't talk about Vanessa or the restraining order, but we did discuss the weather and work. Although it wasn't the kind of connection I had hoped for, it was honest enough. I saw a woman my age walking her dog one Saturday in May while I was hiking close to the cabin. As we started talking, she revealed that she had recently relocated from Denver to the area. I'm Bethany, she said with a smile. About a mile up the road, I purchased a property. My name is Erica. Just down the hill is my cabin. After an hour of hiking, we discussed life, work, and the reasons we both adored the mountains. It was pleasant and simple. She said, we should do this again sometime, as we were leaving. I'd like that, I replied. Over the course of the following several months, Bethany and I grew close. She was a remote graphic designer who, like me, appreciated her independence and privacy. We went on hikes, had dinners together, and discussed a wide range of topics, including relationships, employment, and family issues. We were sitting on my porch one evening in late August, watching the sunset, when she asked, "Do you ever regret it?" She was the first person I'd met in years who seemed to truly understand me. Your sister, the whole thing? After giving it some thought, she remarked, I don't regret standing up for myself, but sometimes I regret how it happened and wish it hadn't gotten so ugly. As summer gave way to fall, I realized that I was happy, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a quiet, steady way that felt sustainable. You shouldn't. What you did required courage. I confess that it didn't feel courageous. Rather, it was terrifying. That's what courage is, she said. I didn't have a fairy tale ending or a perfect family, but I had myself, I had a job I loved, and I had a friend who understood me. In September, the restraining order ended, Vanessa didn't get in touch with me, and my parents sent a quick email asking if I would be interested in attending Thanksgiving. As I looked around at the life I'd built, the space I'd fought for, the boundaries I'd defended, and the friendships I'd cultivated, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I graciously declined and said maybe next year. Bethany and I spent Thanksgiving at the cabin, cooking, laughing, and discussing our future plans. The divorce between Vanessa and Craig was official by Christmas. And she moved into a modest apartment in Denver, barely making ends meet on her pay from a part-time administrative job. Gratitude. Not for what I'd been given, but for what I'd claimed for myself. Within a year, Craig remarried. Vanessa lost her marriage, her luxurious life, and much of her social status in the town, and her connection with her children deteriorated as they spent more time with their father and his new wife. They lost the picture-perfect family image they had worked so hard to maintain, and the weight of their own enabling had finally caught up with them. My parents, embarrassed by the public nature of the restraining order and the family fallout, became more isolated, rarely attending family gatherings and quietly withdrawing from their social circles. I had fought for this peace, this space, this life that was all mine, and even though the journey had cost me relationships that I once believed were necessary, it had given me something far more valuable. As for me, I stood on my deck one cool October morning, coffee in hand, watching the aspens turn gold against the mountainside. The unwavering belief that I was worth fighting for. I discovered that some battles were about recovering the aspects of oneself that had been lost for too long, not about getting even.